Assalamu alaikum students. Today's first online lecture. We already studied about friction, so we will proceed this topic and we will try to finish today. I already told you in class the definition of friction. Friction is a force that opposes relative motion or attempt motion between the systems in contact. So this is the force, so that's why its unit is Newton. Every force have the same unit, that is Newton. Weight is also a force, so its unit is also Newton. Friction is also force, its unit is also Newton. Here microscopically I also described that how friction works between the two sliding objects. If one object is sliding on the surface of another object, it means that there are some microscopic contacts or contact points between these two surfaces, and these two points that are shown in the figure, these are responsible for creating friction. So from this activity you can show that if an object is placed on the surface of table or any other thing, then there are two kinds of forces acting on this object. One is its weight, which is acting in downward direction. The other one is its normal force. About normal force I already told you, this is a force which is always perpendicular to the surface. For example, this is surface and this perpendicular force is normal force. If you will change the orientation of surface, then the normal force will be always perpendicular. For example, in this diagram, if this is the orientation of surface, the normal force is perpendicular to that surface. In this diagram, similar is the case with the normal force. If you will push this book against the table, then this pushing force is acting in downward direction. So actually there is a combination of different forces: normal force, weight, pushing force, or any other applied force. If you will apply, read this table carefully. 3.2 description of friction. You have to read all these description. For example, in figure A, it is clearly shown that there are two forces acting on a body. One is weight, which is acting in downward direction. We know that weight has always direction in downward, and the other is normal reactional force. In this diagram, if you apply force in this direction, this is applied force. For example, if you want to push this block towards this direction, then due to this applied force, there is another reactional force according to Newton's third law of motion will act on this force, that is in opposite direction but equal in magnitude. This is frictional force. This is opposition created against the motion of one object to the other, or against the relative motion of two objects, and this force is frictional force, so its direction is opposite to that of applied force. So four forces are created here. In this diagram, this arrowhead is small, this arrowhead is a bit large. It means that if you increase the force, the magnitude of force, for example, here if you applied 10 newtons of the force and here you applied 20 newtons of the force will increase, the frictional force will also be increased. And this friction, you know already, if the body is not moving, this friction is static friction. If we proceed this diagram shown in D part, if you will increase, for example, 30 Newton, then slightly this object will move in this direction and friction will be created. But if the object is moving, the friction is kinetic friction. And if you will increase the force, then the body will move with a constant velocity. See, the weight and the normal force are at the similar positions and their direction is according to their rules, because weight is directed in downward direction and normal reactional force is acted perpendicular to the surface.